Welcome to Jazz at the Reform Club, and we're delighted to be here in my house here in Hertfordshire, which for tonight, and only one night, we are naming the Lockdown Arms. I've even had a special poster commissioned for that. The Lockdown Arms presented a special exclusive Jazz at the Reform Club, and I'm really very excited to be back in the Reform Club virtually, and I have one of my truly remarkable colleagues on the saxophone joining me, and he's remarkable because he knows everything about everything. We like to call him the Oracle of music, but he also knows anything about, anything interplanetary, stellar, whatever, you name it, he knows it. And he also has a very amazing saxophone, which he'll tell you all about. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the Lockdown Arms, especially for the Reform Club, the incredible Alex "Sonny" Garnett.
Thank you, James. Thank you. And he forgot to mention that I'm also readily available. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on which time zone you are residing in for this concert. We have a sort of broad selection of music which largely centres around the life, the times, the man, the myth, as of course the great legend that is Ronnie Scott. That first piece of music was something that Ronnie Scott actually wrote, which is incredible because apparently he only wrote really one tune, although he's noted of having at least 18 tunes published. That one was called Stop the World, I Want to Get Off, or I'm Sick and Tired of Waking Up Tired and Sick, and a whole load of other titles like Great Scott. He just kept regurgitating it. This next tune we're going to play for you is something that's also attributed to Scott, but only through the title. It's called Through the Night, roared the Overland Express, a broken bridge ahead, and a madman at the throttle. We hope you enjoy. 1, 2, 2. Well. Through the night roared the Overland Express, a broken bridge ahead and a madman at the throttle, which is very apt for this time of day. We hope you enjoyed that. That is sort of something that is considered a hard bop classic, but that is very, very much British. Now you have to remember that way back when the Brits were not considered at the forefront of modern jazz, but there were two very important people emerging on the scene. That, of course, was the great Johnny Dankworth and Ronnie Scott, and they were considered modernists. Now, they were starting to glean a lot of their musical ideas from the sound waves from overboard, namely the mecca of jazz, which at that point had turned from New Orleans to New York. That's where modern jazz kind of started, really. And they were starting to take influence from the American leaders. One particular gentleman had a huge impact, and, of course, that was Charlie Parker and Miles Davis, of course, Dizzy Gillespie. Those guys were really the founders of the modern jazz scene, and we're going to play a piece for you now, which is something they call a contrafact, a tune written above a tune, which is a typical thing of the bebop era. This one is called Half Nelson. 1, 2, 2, That was Half Nelson, which is unusually dedicated to Willie Nelson from country music fame, who apparently was a fan of Miles Davis, and Miles Davis loved him too. It's kind of quite obscure, but there's another dubious connection in the jazz world right there. Inspiration from country music in jazz. Oh, who would have thought it? Anyway, well, yeah. There was actually a bit of a recording blackout in the war years for obvious reasons. So the Brits kind of missed out on a lot of the modern jazz that was coming out of America, New York particularly. So they had to make their pilgrimage. They had to get over there on the ships or work their way over in any way they could to go and see things live. And of course, the place to go back then was a particular street called 52nd Street. Sorry, was it 52nd? Yes, 52nd Street, not 42nd Street. That's a totally different genre altogether. 52nd Street was actually kind of wall-to-wall clubs, the Three Deuces, the famous store, the Onyx, and places like that, which had music 24/7, modern jazz musicians playing in their bands back-to-back and getting extremely creative. Now, that was something that was a big influence on Ronnie Scott, not only in a musical sense, but something that spurred him on to wanting to open his own jazz club back in London to kind of recreate the same thing. Up to that point, there was nothing like that. Ronnie and John Dankworth put a club together called the Club 11, but unfortunately it only lasted a couple of years because it was busted by the police for various reasons. But this was a start, really, and eventually Ronnie Scott was able to hone his skills and become prominent enough to establish himself in a place called Gerrard Street in Soho. That was the first club that he opened back in 1959. Between that period of 10 years of the Club 11 and his own club, he'd also formed a band with one of the foremost saxophonists in the country, a guy called Tubby Hayes. They had a band called the Jazz Couriers, which was considered one of the greatest modern jazz quintets this country ever produced. Tubby Hayes went over to New York, and in a kind of exchange with Americans, he was the first to start the exchange system, which allowed Americans to come and work in British clubs. Tubbs went over to New York, and he recorded this piece of music over there. This is called A Pint of Bitter. 1, 2, Easy now. That was A Pint of Bitter by our very own Tubby Hayes, the amazing Tubby Hayes, who was kind of Britain's answer to Charlie Parker. He made great waves over in the States and, of course, facilitated this new exchange system which allowed Americans to come and work in nightclubs. There'd been an embargo against that up to that point, and Ronnie Scott and his business partner who'd opened the club in Gerrard Street, Pete King, who was also another saxophone player, had done great things with the unions to manage to break this silly embargo. So Tubby was the first musician to start the exchange, and in his place came the great Zoot Sims. And actually what followed then for the next couple of years was a whole cornucopia of saxophone players, mostly tenor players. It's no mistake that there was a lot of saxophone on the roster. Ronnie Scott, being a saxophonist himself, wanted to do the utmost to get his heroes to come and play in his front room, so to speak. And the saxophones that followed were all great names, including Dexter Gordon. Who else came to the club? Oh, the amazing Stan Getz came to the club, although he was a bit of a handful. And that's where... Oh, yeah, there was a Lucky Thompson. He was also a handful. Wow. But incredible musician, yeah. I think Coleman Hawkins might have made an appearance there. Yeah, that's right, yeah. Who else came to the club? Well, I mean, incredible Mr. Sonny Rollins, of course. Let's not forget Sonny. And, well, one of the sort of top-tier musicians, in fact, from the trilogy of the sort of birth of modern saxophone playing. We had Lester Young, of course. We had the great Coleman Hawkins, as mentioned, but another amazing gentleman by the name of Mr. Ben Webster. Well, Ben was an incredible musician and noted as the sort of chief soloist and balladeer in the great Duke Ellington's band. Ronnie was so chuffed that he decided to make his first appearance in Europe, his European debut in Ronnie Scott's. And he played a piece of music that really bowled Ronnie over, a beautiful ballad that was written by Billy Strayhorn for the Ellington band and called Chelsea Bridge. Fantastic piece of music we're going to perform for you now. We hope you enjoy this. Just as a little footnote, there was a mistake when Billy Strayhorn visited London. He was inspired to write this piece of music by a sunset when he was walking along the embankment, and he saw this beautiful bridge start to come to life. It was illuminated, and the whole backdrop really inspired him to write this piece of music. And later on, after they printed the record, they found out that the bridge he had actually seen was Albert Bridge. But anyway, nobody's perfect. Anyway, we hope you enjoy our rendition of Chelsea Bridge.
great. I hope the people in the Reform Club are enjoying themselves. We're certainly having a great time. How about for Alex Garnett on saxophone? Marvellous.
Thank you very much. I was going to say, with all these amazing stars that Ronnie was starting to bring over to his Gerrard Street club, something miraculous happened, and that was they found themselves in the position, incredibly, of needing to expand the business because they couldn't get enough customers through the door. And without wanting to miss out on an opportunity, they decided to shop around and try and get a bigger venue. Somebody heard that they were planning to move and upscale and tipped them off to a building that was in Frith Street, which is where the club resides now. And this place had laid fallow for a little while. They weren't quite sure why, because it seemed like the perfect place. And I think it'd formerly been a sort of supposedly I think it was called the Exotic Club or something like that. Make of that what you will. It didn't last very long. Ronnie went and had a look at it and decided that was the place for them. It was literally a stone's throw from Gerrard Street, and it required a lot of rebuilding, and he needed to borrow £35,000. Harold Davidson, a guy who had booked the Rolling Stones and it was doing very well, was a jazz fan and a friend of Ronnie's, and decided to lend him the 35 grand. Now, good business, often attracts attention, shall we say. And they had a visitation at that point from two very unlikely jazz fans who were trying to muscle in on the operation, namely the Cray twins. Amazingly, they were able to keep the Cray twins at bay because they sort of had some kind of protection because Frith Street really was an Italian street, and the Italian families there were pretty well established. A gentleman that you may or may not know by the name of Albert Dimes stepped in and convinced Ronnie to open his jazz club and that he was never going to have any problems and that he had his back. And in fact, to celebrate the opening of the club, they were given a bottle of champagne from Albert and were told to display this as a talisman of his oath that there was never going to be any problems for the business. Never open it though, never open the bottle, they said. In fact, we had a little accident with that bottle, didn't we? Which we can tell you, yeah. But amazingly enough, somebody that worked at the club who didn't really know the history of this bottle, which still stands on the bar today if you go there, started cleaning it because it was covered in dust, and all the labels started peeling off it, and we thought, oh my god, this is a disaster. So we got some Yoo-hoo out and started sticking the labels back on, and as I sort of remember, somebody noted that underneath it said Sarsons. What? Yeah, it wasn't. Well, anyway, that's probably why he said never open the bottle. Anyway, we're going to play a piece of music for you now, which is evocative of the swinging 60s and Frith Street, the new club. This was written by the great Sonny Rollins in the 60s when he visited the club. He had a residency there. And the film director who created Alfie asked Rollins to take part in the soundtrack. And Rollins came up with a whole bunch of different music for the soundtrack and some of the sequences in the movie. This one is called Alfie's Theme. We hope you enjoy Alfie's Theme. Oh yeah, yeah. Now, whilst the roster at Ronnie Scott's, of course, was very saxophone heavy, Ronnie Scott was hip enough to realise that the sort of founders of the modern jazz movement really were the piano players. And he was hip enough to feature a lot of the greats. In fact, most of the greats came through the door at one stage. Well, James is kind of an authority on that, so I'll pass over to Mr. Pearson here.
Well, thank you. Yes, Ronnie. Of course, this is not Ronnie Scott's. This isn't the wonderful grand piano that they've got in Ronnie Scott's. But in Ronnie Scott's itself, they have had many great pianos. The first one was the one that Stan Tracy played for many years when he was a house pianist. But the first time they had a Steinway piano in there was when the great Bill Evans played there. And there was a lovely story about they basically didn't get the piano until the day of the gig. But Bill was he was unaware of all this and managed to get his gig, and that's all on record, and very excited. One of my favourite piano players that also filmed from Ronnie Scott's was the incredible Oscar Peterson. And Oscar Peterson insisted on bringing his own piano. Well, he personally didn't bring it. It was brought for him, and that was a Bosendorfer Imperial, which had extra notes at the bottom end of it. And it was quite cool. And in fact, what we're going to do is we're going to do a thing called Fictitional Encounters, because both Ben Webster and Oscar Peterson played at Ronnie Scott's, but not together. They played at different times.
I think that's because the piano was too big. They couldn't fit anyone on the stages.
Exactly. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a tune, a sort of homage to Oscar and Ben Webster and any of the bebop, the tenors, especially the guys that played in jazz at the Philharmonic. So here we go with Cottontail. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think I should let the people know a little tidbit of information about the instrument that I'm wearing around my neck.
Absolutely.
Because it's always a pleasure to be able to honour somebody that I feel is probably publicly overlooked in certain respects as to his contributions musically. The great Ronnie Scott, of course. In a lot of ways, the name Ronnie Scott is now synonymous with the club, and the club, in the end, kind of overshadowed the man and his career as a musician. Amongst his journey as a musician, amongst his arsenal of instruments, which is all tenor saxophones, his first tenor saxophone suddenly came to light in a music store, gathering dust that had been sort of forgotten about, really, and had been touted around, and I don't think anybody was interested in it. And one day when I was playing in the area, talking about Ronnie, we were running a show. We were talking about Ronnie Scott. A guy called me up and said, "Listen, on your way into the theatre, come and have a look at this saxophone, and gave me all the provenance, and I found out that this instrument was actually Ronnie Scott's first saxophone that was bought for him by his father, amazingly, and he would have been playing this in the Club 11, hanging around in Archer Street with it, and then obviously in Gerrard Street as well. And later on it sort of disappeared, and he had a few other instruments donated to him from Selma in France. But nevertheless, this is a real piece of history hanging around my neck, but I couldn't just take it out of the shop and just walk off with it. The guy said there's a little debt that has to be settled back in Soho, and I didn't understand what he meant until he explained that the saxophone had been used as collateral on a bad horse race, and never sort of come to collect it. And I think that the bookie was a semi-pro musician. I thought he was going to make a load of money out of it, and then unfortunately it sat in a cupboard for the next 30 years. Anyway, we're happy to have restored the instrument and presented it to you today, just to get you that little bit closer to the man himself, Ronnie Scott. There you go. Yeah. Yes, brilliant. Nice piece of history right there. What should we play for the people? The interesting thing about Ronnie Scott, of course, I mentioned that talisman that was delivered in the sort of early days of the Frith Street Club, and of course the club's still there and has gone from strength to strength in a lot of ways. Well, they had a couple of dips with the visitation of yet another unlikely jazz fan, the VAT man. Oh, yeah. But we won't go into that. They nearly lost it all, but managed to, what do they say, snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, so to speak, with a bit of help again from some friends and jazz fans. And the club was able to float. Of course, to make ends meet, they had to widen their programme and start to include musicians from the jazz idiom, but maybe with more of a commercial context. So we're going to play a piece of music from the pen of a gentleman that had done extremely well in the early days of a rival club around the corner in Wardour Street, a place called the Flamingo. This guy was a great performer, a great singer, and a great keyboard and Hammond organ player, and he had a great hit, of course, which we're going to play for you now, which sort of propelled him into pop status fame, if you like. Now, this guy is incredible guy. He's still performing at over 80 years old, running big bands, and he does make his appearance at the club still. His name is, of course, Georgie Fame. And this piece we're going to see you out with is a great blues piece called Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah. I hear a cry of an encore through the internet.
I think it's a big time lag, but I think you're right.
Let's just pause it a second. Well, you might as well have a glass of the old finest Reform Club whiskey, of course.
Oh, my dear fellow.
Well, as it is the Reform Club, actually you better have that. Because...
I might need it.
Yeah, you better have that. I'm going to ask Alex to sing a song. I thought that would be a nice way to finish off. In fact, yeah, we'll finish
Well, I
off.
think they better have one of these as well before I start.
Yeah,
Let me have a little... Yes, Scotland's finest.
Let's just have a taste of that. Cheers to the Reform Club.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us perform for you. We love them. Sorry we're not there in person. And I love that lovely piano you've got. So hopefully we'll be there soon.
That's lovely, that is. Yeah. Cheers.
Anyway, now we've had that. What should we perform?
I thought it would be, apt to continue on the commercial fortunes of Ronnie Scott's and do something again which is kind of a blues-based piece, but actually is a tune that was written again by the great Duke Ellington, and this was performed by another musician who used to frequent the club, a great blues singer and actually great piano player, jazz musician, a guy called Mose Allison, and this is something called "Do Nothing Till You Hear From Me." Do nothing till you hear from me. Pay no attention to what's said. How anyone could tear the seam of a dream is over my head. Do nothing till you hear from me. Pay no attention, consider our romance, baby. Should you believe the words of others you heard, you know I don't stand a chance. True, I've been seen, baby, with somebody new, but does that mean that I've been untrue though we're apart? You know these words in my heart reveal how I feel about you. Some kiss may cloud my memory, and other arms may hold that thrill. But just do nothing till you hear it from me. And baby, you know you never will. Do nothing till you hear it from me. Yeah, Dad. Take that to the bridge, man. Yeah, Mr. James Pearson. True, I've been seen, baby, with somebody new, but does that mean that I've been untrue though we're apart? You know these words in my heart reveal how I feel about you. Some kiss may cloud my memory, and other arms may hold that thrill. But just do nothing till you hear it from me, and baby, you never will. Just do nothing till you hear it from me, and you never will. You know you never will. Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. That, of course, was Alex Garnett here live at the Lockdown Arms, celebrating the life and times of Ronnie Scott's. But before Alex goes, and what about his fantastic vocal skills? He's quite incredible.
Oh, well.
I haven't told Alex, but underneath this piano here is actually a 1925 pianola. And just,
What?
Yeah, I know. I'm
What
just
is
going
that?
to show you because I thought the members of the Reform Club might like to see this. And what I thought we'd do as a final encore is actually play a piano roll of Jelly Roll Morton himself, and Alex will just join in. He doesn't know about this, and when he's had enough, he'll just walk out. So let's just open the secret hatch like that. Oh, hang on, a bit old as you can see. Just creep down here. You do that like that. The rolls come off, but this is all cool. Yeah, put the roll in. I have to do this bit again. Yeah. See, I quite like this because I don't actually have to play.
That's cheating.
Thank you very much.